Matters of interest, Mr. Priest.
Yes. You want to speak?
Russell Priest, I've heard my name called out 4 times tonight already. I'm a lifelong resident of this county, this town. I've been here all my life. I was born here. And I love Blaine County, and I was a town commissioner for 14 years. Then somebody said, Russell, won't you run for county commissioner? I said, I think I will. So I've been a county commissioner now for 14 years. I've never seen a bunch act like this before, and in the meetings I've been through, being involved in. We all have the right to speak our voice and say what we feel. And then we vote how we feel and who we feel like voting for. And it's gotten now, I remember whenever I ran this time, they went upstairs and met, and they declared me the winner. And I was tickled, glad, and I felt bad for the guy that lost. That's the way I feel about it. And we went downstairs and we went to get something to eat. Hadn't had to eat all day, and I felt good about winning, but that wasn't the most necessity I had to have in my life that day. It wasn't necessary that I had to have it, but I won. And the guy I had was a guy from Tar Heel, and I had an advantage because I was born right here. He moved down from New York, and he wanted to run, and he ran against me. Unsuccessful. When I won the other week, I was really tickled, pleased with what I did. What my wife, every step I took, she was with me. We went to every house in Livingston. I know every house. In Whiteland, every house, my wife and I. We didn't cheat. We didn't do anything wrong. Y'all know my wife. She's not like that. She wouldn't do anything like that, and I mean either. And we went to every home, and we got votes, and we had people call me up, Mr. Priest, we got your back. I said, okay, thank you. And I knew I was going to have good support. I knew that. Because I know everybody in Blaine County, just about, black and white. And they know how I am. I've coached most of them son in baseball and football. I've been out there working with them at after school, during school. Taught school for 44 years, just retired about 6 weeks ago. Miss it, but it's a time to get out. I have not been told by anyone yet what I did wrong. There's my right hand. I've not been told by anybody what I did wrong. Y'all believe that? I've not been told what I did wrong. That's a shame. Now, I've called people and asked them, what have I done? Something about voting. I said, I voted, yeah, but I haven't done what they're talking about, absentee ballots. No, I didn't know anything about absentee ballots, really and truly. But I know a lot of people really enthusiastic about them. I saw people come up behind the old library, and some of them came with pickup trucks, had a stack of papers like that stack. I'm not going to call their names. But that wasn't the first time he came with stacks of papers, ballots. And that goes on. And one of the guys I know of, I'm not calling names, but he should have been banned from any activities at any polling places. Because there's been a prison because of it. Y'all know that's the truth. We ought to take care of what we got here, but people that are involved in crime like that and do away with it. That's the way you get it stopped. But I have had no one to call me and tell me what Mr. Priest did wrong. So what I tell my wife? Upset. She's still upset. And I don't blame. I feel for her, and I've nothing I can do to mend anything that's been damaged already. But I assure you people here that I have not done anything illegal in the primary at any time. I ran twice this year. I had to run. The Republican didn't run, and so they wanted the election, so they got somebody to run. Wayne Ish ran against me. I had to run as a against the Republican. Then I won that one, and had to go to the next party. So it's not been easy, but I did it. I wanted to get out and quit and go home. But I'm not a defeatist person. Really, I'm not. And I battle. And I enjoy what I've been doing here, but I haven't enjoyed this last 3 or 4 weeks. They won't tell me anything. I came up here at the first meeting. I was going to sit down here. Here's my chair. and I got word I couldn't be seated. But I could go ahead and vote this time because I'm the county commissioner. I won the election, but I can't be seated. Anybody understand that? That part of it. So I'm a commissioner based on what last 3 or 4 years, but have not been seated yet. Certified yet. They call it certification. And who did that? State of North Carolina. Raleigh. They came and told us about me. I don't even know anybody from Raleigh. I don't know what they did. That's why I say I don't know anything that went on in Raleigh and still don't know. They coming down in little cars and they haven't been to see me yet. I don't, like somebody said, he said Russell Priest did this, Russell Priest did that. But see, Russell Priest ain't done anything. But to try to win an election, my wife was my side person, helping me, and she took it very serious. She said she'd get up Sundays and tell me let's go to areas that I hadn't been to yet, door to door. That's how much it meant to us, not to be crooked when I don't want nothing crooked. That's what those people supposedly did. That's terrible. That's terrible to be that crooked. Now I was at one place, they came in with packets about that thick. And I said, someone said, they got ballots. I said, what? And I couldn't believe it. We had girls coming on the table. We had one group came in with girls from Fayetteville, they were prostitutes. They came to where we were parked, and they were, this is the truth, they were getting out of that, they had on short skirts up there, and ugly.
Yeah.
Woo!
That's
That it. Well, I'm gonna tell you, that's what's going on. What?
Too much information.
Well, I'm trying to tell you, that's what was going on. The same guy all they got big time was doing that.
We don't need to be.
I know you don't need it.
Thank you.
I'm tired of it myself.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people tired of it.
What, are you tired of it?
Yeah, I'm tired of
What are
it.
you tired of?
I'm tired of everything.
Oh, okay, well, that takes care of everything. You got sworn in, didn't you get certified?
I won by 1,400 some votes.
Did you
If
get
you won by
certified?
1,400 some votes, you would have got
Did you get
certified.
certified?
You would have got certified.
I won.
Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chief. Thank you all for the opportunity to talk with you all. Now we had a good holiday break. Been this exciting commission meeting after so while. I'm not going to take up much of the time because after having talked with Mr. Chair today, I do recognize that you all have some of the same issues as it relates to compensation with the hurricane. So I wanted to kind of just share some things with you all in terms of how we want to deal with the current situation dealing with employee pay and working shelters, as well as how we need to address it in the future. I will say that we learned a tremendous amount from the Matthew hurricane that helped us prepare for Florence. And obviously, Florence was much worse in terms of what we had to do as a county. I think us working together to do all of that made it much better for the citizens of Clayton County. So kind of what I want to do is do three things very quickly because I know we have a lot to talk about tonight. That's to address the current and future compensation issue as it relates to providing help during a crisis situation. Talk about what we're going to do as a board to develop a policy within developing a memorandum of understanding between the county, government, and the Board of Education. So very succinctly describe the compensation issue to you, because I think you all are familiar with it. We've had employees that worked in county shelters that were declared during the emergency situation. And those employees have not been compensated in what we feel is a fair manner. One of the things that we have are what we call exempt employees and non-exempt employees. Those exempt employees are people like the administrators that have contracts like I do. And we're not subject to the Fair Labor Standards. So that means we can work 1 million hours and not get paid anything for it. And then there are the non-exempt employees that are hourly paid. Currently, the way the situation stands is that if a non-exempt employee works, they end up being compensated for overtime. In this case, FEMA will reimburse us for what we pay for overtime. And most of that is because we don't have any kind of policy that determines how people will or will not get paid. And then the school administrators and anybody that's exempt employees, maintenance director, people of that sort, they haven't gotten paid anything. What's made the situation worse is that the state forgave the time for everybody that was a school employee. So what ended up happening is that you would have a person that worked in the shelter, all of that extended time, and the person who's sitting at home doing nothing, and they're both compensated. So that's created a tremendous problem for them. In addition to that, they also look at how a person earns every time. So what we have now is a situation where a person, and this is a real situation, one of our cafeteria workers worked 65 hours in the shelter, but simply because that time was over 2 different pay periods, and she's gotten 0 hours in overtime. A similar person who worked 65 hours in 1 week would have gotten paid 25 hours for overtime. So those are some of the things that we're asking that you guys help us to try and resolve and rectify. We had an opportunity to meet with FEMA today, and what we now understand is that if there's anything that we do in terms of compensation for employees is not something that if we submit it, they're going to reimburse us for it because we don't have a policy. And even if we gave it to you all as services rendered, because there's not some memorandum of understanding between our 2 groups, then they still won't pay it. So it's one of the things I talked with Mr. Martin about that we were hoping to do. We now understand that that's not the case. So everything else that we've incurred in terms of storm damage, cleanup, use of equipment, all of those things, they're going to reimburse us for. But it's the work that we do in the shelters, because that's a county function, and we don't have an agreement with you all. They're not going to reimburse it unless it's overtime. So we're in the process of developing a policy that will address that. But one thing that we have to remember is that whenever we develop a policy, both the Board of Education and the county commissioners, we can't do a policy that talks about FEMA. FEMA says it can't be about how you want us to reimburse you, but how you will compensate anybody during this kind of situation. So what we recognize is that the shelters can't function without the school district because it's going to take our employees to be there and do it. But we also recognize that it comes at an expense to the Board of Education. And that's what we want to do, is to work to develop a memorandum of understanding so that if you all develop a policy and we develop a policy, we try to align those as much as possible so that we want to have this in the future as we move forward. So to give you one example, that I also think we need to address when it comes to the opening of shelters, that even if we determine how we want to do the compensation piece, we also have to determine cost things. And so if we open a shelter from an ice storm that may not be a FEMA-related disaster, and then we take on the cost of feeding people there. So now we understand that you don't want to be in a situation to where you don't know what the cost is going to be. But at the same time, if we serve 1 tater tot or 1,000,000 tater tots, if we're not compensated in some kind of way for that, then we're taking on a burden that's not our responsibility. So I've said a lot of stuff. I'm not going to belabor the point. I do want to give you an opportunity to ask me any questions if you have it. But after having talked with several people, I do recognize that you all have the same situation. Employees that are at home and getting paid versus those who work extended hours. So one of the things that we're going to do is that when we recognize that FEMA will not reimburse this, but we have those employees that have worked and have not been compensated, that is what we want the commissioners to be able to do, is to compensate those employees for the time that they work, because the board is not in a position or may not be in a position to pay that compensation. And then we want to be able to work with you to develop a memorandum of understanding to address this in the future, and then hopefully try to develop a policy that aligns for both the board and the county commission. So with that, I'll stop. Ms. Penny, is there anything that you need to add? I'll let you do that, and then we'll answer any questions that anybody may have.
Anyone have any questions?
On this,
Special cafeteria staff, I think it's unfair, and one came to me a couple days ago and asked me, I think, a funeral that she had concern about, because she got paid $115 overtime, that's all she was paid. But she did, she was there the entire time. She was doing 20 hours a day, 24 hours a day. So can they not be contract direct with FEMA? Why do they have to come through the school? Why not?
FEMA does not reimburse the employees directly. They are only going to reimburse the applicants, and the school system is the only one that can file the application. And excuse me. So they don't write the checks directly to the employees. We have to write the check to the employee, and then FEMA reimburses us what we paid the employee.
How about those come under the Red Cross though? If they come through the Red Cross, they will not pay them either?
I have no idea about the Red Cross.
Because when they come over and take over the shelter, the Red Cross, now, why can't they then come on the Red Cross and let FEMA pay them? Because I think it's unfair for them to work those hours.
We've never, since I've been with the Board of Education, and that's been since August of 2002, we have not been able to ask. What would happen there would be that, I guess, that the Board of Education would still pay the employees, and then the Red Cross would reimburse us. They've not been in a position, or told me that they have not been in a position to reimburse the school system for any shelters that we've opened. When I was at Whiteville City Schools and we had to open shelters, I would bill we would pay the employees, and then I would bill the Red Cross chapter there directly, and they would reimburse us.
Right.
And they just have told me they don't do that.
Well, I'm asking, why not? I mean, they do pay employees, they do. I can tell you that, because I have a cousin that does. She works for the nurse, she gets paid. So if that's the case, once the Red Cross come in, can you not check and see, can they now then go under the Red Cross? Instead of school board?
I can check on that again. Like I said, I was told that, and this has been some years ago, that that's not the way it works.
Something that we can check, but even during the storm Florence, the Red Cross only took over the East Arcadia shelter. So the remaining shelters were still under county jurisdiction. And then when we finally moved to Booker T. Washington, where we consolidated, then I would say about probably 99 to 100% of the staff was Red Cross.
So, just piggyback, please. If that lady worked that many hours, she should have got paid more than $115. She exempt or not exempt?
No.
She is a non-exempt
Yeah.
employee, but
I thought you said today that all of them got paid.
if they had more than 40 hours in a work week,
Well, she said this lady worked 20 hours.
in a work
That's all she
week.
got.
Oh, she got 20 hours. All
She got more than that. What happened though, what they're not saying is, the other cafeteria staff stayed home. They got the full salary. This young lady went to work and did those 60 or 80 hours. She got paid additional $100 and some, but so she could stay home and got a full salary, $765.
Really, she worked that many hours, she should have got more money than
It all
$115.
depends on how her hours fell, so we'd have to take a look at her sheet.
Okay,
Just
okay.
like,
Okay.
one of the employees that I had to work
Can you give a
65.
name before they leave?
I will.
They'll check it. Dr. Bull, I mean, Mr. Dr. Bull.
All right, okay.
What I'm moving. But now, one question I have though, if we come up with a policy between the two of us, are you saying FEMA will reimburse anything we pay?
Right, they reimburse based on what's possible.
100%?
Well, I'm not gonna say 100%, you submit, and then they determine whether or not they're gonna pay the claim.
Well, you know, doesn't it create morale problems when we,
Absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
So we need to do something for our citizens to make sure that morale problem is no longer there. I don't know what it is, but everybody need to get paid for whatever they work, you pay them.
It's a,
Well, in studies, don't they show?
Oh, Mr. Brooke, he's got the floor.
But don't think about it, I'm saying, if I work 65 hours, I'm gonna get paid 65 hours. All right, what I'm, exempt or non-exempt, I want my money. And I think we should do our citizens the same way. Whatever they work, because what I'm hearing is your advantage, stay home.
That's right. It is.
No, we can't have that. We got to pay.
Mr. Cogdell?
Look,
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
looking at the, pull up here, when you're talking about the policy, on the emergency show conversation about. I'm looking at this, these funds you have is $66,875.81.596. What are you asking us to be involved with in these funds? How much are you asking for us to assist you with? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure the numbers you're looking at, but okay.
What are you asking us to do?
So the overtime pay is 66,000. That's what we've already paid out. FEMA's gonna reimburse that. And so, when you look at the 81,000, that's the regular time, that the non-exempt employees work. So in other words, this is part of the question that, there's a belief that there's double pay, meaning that if they got paid by the state and that we pay them for working in the shelters, they're getting paid twice. And I understand that argument, and I can, certainly understand why someone would say that. But at the same time, we want people to recognize that the shelter, that's a function outside of their regular work. That's not a Bladen County School effort. That's a county effort. And if a person works there, then we want them to be compensated for that. So that's what that time was. Then there's the time that the administration or the non-exempt employees, whoever they may be, any contract person, that comes to around $57,000. So that means that's the time that they work in there. So what we recognize is that the only thing we can do is ask the commissioners to compensate those people. And then there's a...
Which ones you, both,
Yes.
both the 81,000 and 657,000.
Right, because that's...
You asking for this board to compensate your board.
To compensate the employees, not the board, because
But
they
give it to
work
the
for
Board of
that time.
Education,
That's right.
that amount of money to compensate these employees.
So you'll understand, the first thing that we did was to calculate the time that they worked in the shelter. And so now, as county commissioners, you all can determine what you will or will not do. We can't make you do it. And so one of the things that I know that you all have done is certain people have been paid for time above their regular hours. And so again, even if we did that situation of where you paid them that overtime, we still got employees that would not be compensated. So I'll say this and then you'll understand where I'm coming from. When we talk about the time that they work in the shelter, the lady that got $100 and some odd dollar check, we've got another employee again that worked 65 hours because they're in two separate time periods which she did not choose. She gets $0. Another person that could work the same amount of time in one pay period could get a whole lot more pay. So even if we do it to where we pay a person for the time beyond 40 hours, if it's in the wrong time period, they still don't get anything. So what we've done is captured the time that they worked, and then the commissioners need to work with the board to determine what's going to be fair compensation, because there are going to be some situations where people work the exact same time in different times, and the compensation is different.
Okay, I'm just doing the numbers. It's probably roughly $140,000 that we're talking about. You want us to compensate you that money, but how do we decide who pays who and how much, who gets what? How do we do that?
We don't. And
Give them a lump sum.
So we'll give you a
and that
lump
is
sum.
based on the time that people work.
That people have worked.
Yeah, 'cause
We
we're
don't
not
want
gonna say-
$140,000. That's what you're asking
Yeah,
tonight.
we're not gonna say, Billy, you get $20 and you get $50. This is all based on the time that they work.
The bottom line, you need $140,000. That's what you're saying.
That's what we would like to do. We'd like to compensate those people that work in the shelters, doing all the stuff, doing the relief effort, so they can be compensated for the time that they work.
Ms. Martin, Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question real quick? Can we bill FEMA for this, or do FEMA not reimburse us back?
No, we can't bill them.
So we can't bill them for this?
We can't get
This is an
reimbursed.
expense to the
My
county.
understanding, we can't get reimbursed
Okay.
this time.
That's what I want to make sure.
Mr. Trevor,
No, I didn't have anything.
Mr. Britt.
My concern here, and I've had the same calls, and I've shared this in your presence before. My question would be though, and I'm hearing if this was something we had adopted and set a policy, and you're aware of the policy, and if Mr. Martin, and I'm not throwing blame, I'm just trying to figure out something here. Why have we not got together and adopted that policy if FEMA would reimburse us so that we will make our people that's been calling me and them and all that upset? If that opportunity's been there, I guess is why I'm asking.
And that's Mr. Chairman, that's a very good question, Commissioner Britt. I guess the reality is this has never been a topic of conversation before, and I think I'll offer a suggestion of why that may be. Because in the past, particularly related to the folks working shelters, in the past, the school system does not compensate teachers or school system staff if they don't work. So if the school is closed for 3 days or whatever, and they don't teach and don't work in the school system, then the state, I don't know if they require, they just have to take vacation time. You have to make up time or take vacation leave. So therefore, those people who did work were actually compensated. In essence, they were compensated for the time that they were working. In other words, they didn't have to take vacation leave or make the time up because they were already working in the shelters. This time, the duration of the event was longer. There was more political pressure on the members of the General Assembly to waive those days. So in essence, it created the same scenario that the county has. Those people who worked in the shelters, unless they did work overtime, they didn't receive any more compensation than county employees or school system employees who did not report to work in shelters. So therefore, there seems to be, among people who worked, there seems to be an imbalance that we would have otherwise been paid anyway, so we basically worked for no compensation.
Well, if I can follow up that, and I appreciate that, but I think that my concern, if we were facing this next year, if we don't address it, and I know we have some good people in our county, obviously, a lot of good people that donate their time, but at the same time, I hate to see some shelter full of people and no people working. And I feel that with the attitude that's out there, where it may be, that it's not a good attitude right now, and I think that we might have to bite the bullet and come up and do something to appease some way or another. But work hard on coming up with something.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at this and we're trying to outline, and he's just telling us and giving us a report of how much we need to pay. Is this gonna be handled as an action item? Are we gonna decide on this tonight?
No, we're gonna take it to committee.
So we're gonna try to figure out where we can.
Yeah, and we're gonna take it to committee, and then we'll come back, we can't give them money, no, we're gonna vote on it next, we're on table.
I just got one question now. If we approve this at $138,000, that would cover all hours that have been worked.
Well, then, go ahead.
So you're saying, and you're gonna pay those employees
Yes, ma'am.
those checks? My question is, if that's the case, we did something for our staff, did we not?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
got a policy.
We got a policy, right?
And go ahead if you have a question.
So it's because you never had a policy at all?
Correct.
School, okay. So are these people required to come in?
Yes, they're what we call essential staff, so that if we know we gotta open a shelter, that all of those people that are involved, the shelter can't function without them, because even if you had county employees in that, they don't know anything about the HVAC system, they don't have heat, blah, blah, blah. So this all the essential employees.
How are these individuals, how are these employees selected for that role to be considered essential?
Based on their job description, so that means that if you're in the maintenance department, then you gotta come out, because we're gonna have systems that go down. If you're a custodian, that work in the buildings, or in the transportation department, our school administration, those are the people that we have. So you get child nutrition, because they work in the cafeteria, they know the food, the equipment. I couldn't even work in the kitchen, I might blow something up.
So there were many hats.
Right. So to tell you how we balanced it out, in the past, it was the child nutrition worker that was at that school. Those were the ones that came in. But this time, and it worked out really good, is that we created a rotation schedule that involved every child nutrition worker that was available. Because imagine that person being at that school for 13 or 14, that doesn't, it couldn't happen. We did the same thing with administration, where there was a rotation schedule where people were relieved, because under Matthew, I think it is, we had administrators and cafeteria workers that were in the buildings 5 or 6 days having to do it all.
Mr. Martin?
Mr. Chairman, if I could circle back to Dr. Mungo's question. The one distinction that or one distinction, I'm not sure if it's the only one, that I see on this, and this is what I've talked about with Dr. Taylor and Ms. Penny, is the $81,596 figure. That, I just want to remind you of how the county's policy reads. That would be compensating the school employees for time that they, if I understand correctly, that they've already been compensated for by the state.
Right.
So that would be there would be a sense of there could be a perceived sense of inconsistency in terms of county employees who also work at the shelters outside of their normal job responsibility, their day-to-day job responsibilities, who didn't receive any additional compensation for those hours worked. They did receive the compensation for overtime, but and our exempt employees were compensated. That was the distinction that the Board of Commissioners made. They compensate, you all approved compensation for overtime hours for exempt employees. That has not happened with the school system.
Mr. Chairman, I got one question. You said one lady or individual employee worked in 2 different time periods, and they get paid for either one.
That's right.
Now, in other words, if she worked those 65 hours, there could have been 35 that were in this week and 30 in the other week, and that doesn't put her in an overtime status. So she did that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, then she wouldn't get anything. But a person who relieved her during the exact same time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would get the 25 hours.
Seems like whoever was over the management part of it would kind of control that, so that individual would not be disadvantaged.
And see, and a lot of it was based on when people were available, because we had some people initially that couldn't get in, and they would come in 4 or 5 days later. So 2 things I'll say without answering the question again. I agree with Mr. Chairman that I think this is something that we've got to resolve in a committee to determine what is going to be fair compensation, because I certainly understand if you're saying the person has already been compensated by the state, but we've still got to determine what we're going to do to make it fair for those people that are in that situation.
Right.
And then the second thing is that we've still got to come to terms as 2 different groups about what happens in terms of compensation and responsibility if we open that shelter and it's not a FEMA declared disaster, because you still have expenses that are being incurred that the state or the federal government won't reimburse, and that's the
And it could be very soon.
I got 2 quick questions. The situation where you said the lady worked in 2 different pay periods, how did the same worker come in there and do the same job and it not be 2 pay periods for them?
That's what I'm saying.
I'm confused about your pay periods now.
Our pay period runs Sunday through Saturday. So that means the time that you work has to be within those 7 days.
And you said she worked 3 days.
Well, in other words, if she worked, I'm telling you about the person that has 65 hours. I'm not familiar about that particular situation, but if a person came in, and this is the way I explained it, if a person worked 80 hours, 20 hours a day, and they did that on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, according to how FEMA looks at your work week, they wouldn't get overtime, because the first 40 hours is in the Sunday through Monday week 1, and the second 40 hours is in the Sunday through Saturday of week 2. So that's 2 different pay periods. Even though it was an
40-hour work week, it wouldn't be overtime.
Say again?
The thing that and we're gonna move on to committee, but the reason he's talking about double pay, that come from me today, because we pay our county employees, like, after the feds pay we pay the first 7.5 hours, and then we pick up everything after that. But what you're asking us to do, for us to pay it all. And that's where I'm saying it's double pay, and I don't think that's fair to pay school employees one thing and pay the county employees something totally different.
And I understand that, and,
Okay.
and that's why I said we've got to come to terms about what we consider fair compensation.
Mr. Martin, then we're gonna move on.
Well, I was just gonna, the reason is because overtime technically is only classified as hours worked over 40 in the work period. So that's why, I mean, but you just kind of spoke to that. So.
You don't need our work day, anything over rates overtime.
Well, I'm just saying the way the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll get back with you.
But you have a next.
You got that?
But you have next time.
You wait till that.
Okay.
I'm trying to get back with him on the money.
Okay, you should have before you a capital outlay projects request that we're asking, to be allowed, the use of sales tax or sales tax reimbursement to use. Ms. Mungoins had an earlier question. And it wasn't made clear, the first, item that says Chromebooks, lease payment year 1 of 3, that is a lease on our middle school. The Chromebooks that are in our middle school. The ones at the bottom are for the high school. And I will redo that, and I'll make that correction, and I'll send the corrected copy to Maria to get back out to you all. But there are 2 different programs.
What's the,
Anybody got a question?
what's this, I was gonna ask, what's the 8 units at Liberty Washington, what are we talking about?
After we closed up Booker T. Washington, someone went in there and vandalized the school, and they took out 8 of the HVAC units.
AC?
AC units.
They took the
They-
copper, they removed the copper,
Oh,
and you really can't go back and fix that at that point.
And that's one of the questions I was gonna ask. So I'd like to know what you gonna do to keep that from happening again?
Well, we already, some of those were already, had the smaller fences around those, we've increased that, and also, there are still people there now. I think a lot of it had to do with Booker T. Washington's closing, right as we came in the summer, and there was nobody there. But we have migrant program in there, we have night classes in there now, we're using it as a training center, so there are people there, and that's kinda obvious now, and whereas I think that was really right on the heels of school closing, and people thinking Booker T's closed and nobody's gonna be there.
But, don't you have some of your central staff over there as well, doing that?
But
But we were saying this was, I think,
it was right at the end of school when all it was is Booker T's not gonna be in school anymore.
Now, I'm just trying to figure out what was 8 units or 30 dollars.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm not gonna tell you I spend some money, but it don't make sense to throw good money out of bad money. But you're in that fence, they're gonna keep your copper out there. So, I mean, but that's all my comment. And another comment was, I don't know why we got to buy, new furniture. I mean, I look, I need between the many buildings, if you got a full of furniture, we could scrap up something, save that $1,300, but anybody else got any comments? What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Carter, second, Mr. Bullock, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, back.
Have a good holiday.
Good night.
Mr. Bradley Kinlaw.
Mr. Chairman, he
Mr. Martin.
had to step out on his.
He just texted me, he said I'm back.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Okay,
But-
is it the pleasure of the board, I move on and come back to that?
That's all right.
Greg Alkins, planning the board, planning department, update regarding flood damage and data collection.
So what I came tonight to update the board about is, after Hurricane Florence, there was a team of some FEMA boats that we went to, or we kind of broke up in like 4 teams, and went to various parts of the county and looked at all the structures that were located in a flood zone to look at the structure, not go inside, but look at the structure to see if it was the term substantially damaged. And substantially damaged was 50% damage based on the tax value. If it was over 50%, it would be substantially damaged. And like I say, we looked at, out of 102 structures that were looked at, this one day last week, I sent out 41 of the requirements, because we're involved in a national flood insurance program. One of the requirements for us to stay eligible in that program is for us to notify these folks that your property has been deemed to be substantially damaged. And basically what that means is I've gotten, out of 49 letters, I've had 49 phone calls just about, you know, what does this mean? Well, basically what it means is if they decide that they're gonna refer or, you know, redo the house, it's got to be brought up to today's standards. Meaning, it's got to be elevated, the heat and air units have to be, you know, up to, you know, building code to be built in floodplain. And a lot of folks, well, not a lot, but some of the folks that I've talked to, they said, you know, we're not moving back, it's the third time we've been flooded, we're done. But it's just to let them know that if they are gonna fix it up, then they've got to elevate, because the whole thing about the National Flood Insurance Program is we're trying to mitigate, like anything else, you know, mitigate it from happening again. And for them to go back and fix a house that was, you know, over 50% damaged, and fix it right back like it was, you know, chances are, it'll probably happen again.
Great. That's working. With that mitigation, with the mitigation though, when Bradley came in and spoke with us about the mitigation and how many houses we were fixing, you say you identified 40?
Well, this was done after Florence. This was what
I'm saying,
he's
but you
doing with.
identified 40 on this. The reason I asked is, when we spoke with him about houses that were done Matthew, he gave us a list of how many houses were there and how you got on that list. So I'm asking, are we adding an additional 40 houses from Florence on that list when he couldn't get costs? And that was the issue, you couldn't get enough money to fix the one that was done in Matthew.
Yeah.
Are we adding those houses to the list? Or?
Well, I don't know that we're adding to anything right now, because there hadn't been any, I guess they would potentially be eligible for any hazard mitigation, you know, grant funding, you know, that would be available after Hurricane Florence.
That's what I'm asking.
But this was something that, you know, we had people here to help us do it. We went out and they were only interested in, there were a lot of properties that flooded that were not in the floodplain.
I'm asking what resources are available to people that can't afford to put these houses back?
Hopefully, some of these same programs that became available after Matthew will be available. I'm not aware of any programs that have come available after Hurricane
So
Florence.
basically, we're condemning people's houses and telling them they can't put them back? Is that what you're saying? I'm asking, is that what you're telling them? You can't put it back unless you meet that criteria to raise them up. So basically, you condemning the property if a person don't have the money. You just basically want to see the house condemned. It won't meet the requirements. Is that what you're doing?
If they think, I don't know, use the word condemn, but I'm saying that that may be the correct word. But if they are going to fix it back, it has to be brought up to today's standards to get it out of the flood zone.
You have to rebuild it. You have to condemn it, tear it down, do something to get it back. Leave it behind.
I have a question on that, if I may. Same kind of thing here. So you're saying in order for them to be approved for the funds that FEMA is going to give them, they have to meet certain criteria, meet certain standards.
Yeah.
And those standards are set forth in place to keep them from having the same issue occur again.
Because it's also my understanding that if they don't do that, then they'll, in future flooding, they wouldn't be eligible for any.
Sure, okay.
Disaster.
But I don't think that's 100% accurate, because they ain't no part of money there to help these people out.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you basically going around condemning,
That's what I'm trying
condemning
to
property.
understand, because I don't really understand it.
These are, you said 102 homes, where are they located? What part?
Most of them are Kelly, Navajo.
Well, can I ask a question?
49.
Are they gonna have anything because of the dike, breaking? Can they have nothing from the state gonna help them?
We have talked to the engineers, you know, or the Corps of Engineers on that, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
I can respond to that.
Yeah.
When they inspected the dike in 2010, 2010, Corps of Engineers come inspected the dike. And they had this list of things that had to be completed for the Corps of Engineers to continue to maintain the dike. Well, for some reason, those items were not fixed. So if you don't fix the recommendations of the Corps of Engineers, they drop you off the list. So what happened was, they didn't fix the audited items, and the Corps dropped them. So that's where it is now. It's a standalone pile of dirt with trees and everything growing, and they don't look like there's no help for it because the advisory board dropped the ball. Is that somewhat accurate? Mr. Martin?
Well, I don't think, I really just wanted to share some information, related to, I'm kind of deviating, so if we need to go ahead and back with it.
Are you gonna talk about the dike?
No,
Mr. Martin?
I was talking about.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Related to the dike, I want to thank, Ms. Edwards and Ms. Coleman. They have researched and found that the tax that has been, we all know, was authorized in 1961 by the General Assembly to be levied for the Kelly Dike District, was actually levied for 4 years, to the best of our research, and that was years 1965 through 68, those tax years, at 1 cent per $100 valuation, and it generated approximately $700 per year. So there was very little revenue generated, but then it was discontinued after a very short period of time. So that was just coming to our attention. I want to share it.
Mr. Carter, the only person I was asking, when you were saying that amount of houses had been, you went out and found that they was unsuitable for them to reoccupy.
Well, there were 49 that were over 50% damage.
But have them asked, are they being removed from our tax base? Are those properties coming out? If a person can't put it back, I'm asking, have we looked at okay, if we looking at this vacant land that we just saying is unusable, is it coming out the tax base, or where's it coming from? How are we looking at that?
I think at this point, we're just making them aware.
We're just making them aware. Most of them have not done anything.
Right.
We're just
So
making them aware.
It depends on the decision that they make. That's part of the factor, those are factors that they'll have to take into the consideration.
But what I'm saying, are they gonna be charged assess the same taxes that they were assessed before this happened? That's what I'm asking. How are they gonna be assessed for their property? If they sitting there, you tell them they can't move back into it until you do something with it. That's the first thing I was asking.
Can I ask a point though? That's a good point for, Mr. Carter asked. So from the tax purpose, when do they have to come to appeal now to the board? Because again, those are dollars we're not gonna get. And these some folks who don't, they're not, some of them are not working, some of displaced still have not made it back to their home.
There is a time for people to appeal the tax.
So they, but my point to Ms. Renee, then that means every lot of them should appeal a letter, or call to if necessary.
No,
Well, with a letter.
that's Greg's responsibility, not Renee's right now.
For the tax purpose?
It's Greg's responsibility to work with his list.
So you're gonna make sure they get a letter, knowing they have to come to the board to appeal the tax for next year?
I've got all their addresses. I can send them another letter.
And what did your
We
letter
need
say?
to wait and see what the outcome is.
So
before
what's
we
what
start
they're gonna do?
sending
They're
letters.
gonna fix it or?
It doesn't matter. Right now, for the last, at this point, next year, the tax is gonna come. And you saying they have until what time to appeal? Well, that's my point. When do you have to appeal?
In the spring of the year,
Or
usually by
January.
April. Yeah,
January.
January is your list of time
Okay.
to appeal.
So, I mean,
But I'm
I don't
saying,
understand
but
what you're saying.
then they need to know now because January's coming.
We don't need to send letters out until we know what's going on. Greg, all he's got's a list. Am I wrong?
I've just notified these people that the property was substantially damaged and what they need to do to bring it.
We need more on this, Greg. There's just too much confusion.
I understand, but
Maybe
here,
they don't.
Mr. Chairman, the purpose of sharing this with you all is because 49 people, as you all know, that's a large number. You could receive calls from constituents, and we just want to be sure
Information
that,
is just not enough of it evidently.
I
because
understand.
We don't have the answers to a lot of these questions.
and we don't know how they'll take that information into
Well, that's the
consideration.
reason I
They may
said,
repair their home,
that's
and
right,
there
I
will be
said,
an
you
issue.
just have a list at this time. Any more questions?
No, but I'm sending it out there.
Thank you, Greg. Bradley back.
Mr. Chairman, I overlooked, Miss Jessie Myers is here, she can speak to the,
To what?
to item 7.
Item 7.
Okay, I'm sorry. You got the floor.
Chief of Highway Consultant.
Thank you, Chairman Peterson. Commissioners. I believe you were given a copy of the contract with Chris Holmes, PE. You actually had approved the selection and award at your October 15th meeting. So we now have a contract to proceed with that. Just to let you know, for the 2 elevations that are a part of your HMGP project, the amount budgeted for engineering services is $51,040. There may be some elevations as a part of your Hurricane Matthew DRA program, and when we identify those units that are actually going to have to be elevated, then, we will proceed with that as well with the same engineer. So we're requesting that you approve that contract tonight and now get into the.
What's the pleasure of the board? Motion approved by Mr. Tripp, second by Mr. Gooding.
Got one question.
Discussion.
Is there any cost involved in this for the county?
No, this will be can be entirely reimbursed with HMGP DRA or HMDRA.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, thank you. Next.
I believe you also have a memo that was written to Bradley by me recapping the procurement process for appraisal services as well as for lead-based paint. Unfortunately, we did not receive any proposals for the first go-round of request for proposals, so we went back out for a second round. We are recommending that you award the contract for appraisal services to Cox Realty and Appraisal from Blade Europe, and for the lead-based paint inspection services to Fraley and Robertson. They are out of Raleigh. These awards are contingent upon approval from the Division of Emergency Management because we only received 1 proposal in each one. We have to get their approval.
We don't have no action items, Greg, on that.
We don't have that.
Who did you say was the one?
It just says provide an update, it says provide an update.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. This is, I thought that was included in the package, but this is a memo to Bradley Kenlaw. Give you a real quick recap for appraisal services. We went out for the first round back in September. We did not receive any proposals at all. So you went back out for a second round. Those were due in October. We sent them out the first time to 5 appraisal firms, the second time out to 9 appraisal firms. And we received the 1 proposal, and that was from Cox Realty and Appraisal out of Bladenboro. They quoted a price of $700 per appraisal. This is in line with the budgetary requirements for the HMGP program. The lead-based paint